The Bible mentions them only briefly, 6 verses in Genesis, a single reference in Numbers. Yet their presence echoes through ancient texts that were hidden for centuries. They were called the Nephilim, giants who walked the earth before the flood, the offspring of something that should never have been. And according to the scriptures, their story may not be finished. Most people have heard of the Nephilim. They appear in popular culture as monsters, demons, or mythological creatures. But what does the Bible actually say about them? The answer is more disturbing than fiction, because it is rooted in Scripture. The word Nephilim appears in the original Hebrew text. It is not a mistranslation. It is not symbolic. It is a name given to beings who existed in the world before the Great Flood. And to understand who they were, we must begin where the Bible begins their story. In Genesis chapter 6, Genesis 6 verses 1 through 4 records something unusual, something that stands apart from the rest of early Genesis. It says, "When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose." The sons of God. In the original Hebrew, this phrase is B'nai Elohim. Throughout the Old Testament, this term consistently refers to divine beings, angels. The text continues, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown." The Nephilim were the result of this union, hybrid beings, part human, part something else. The word Nephilim itself comes from the Hebrew root nephal, which means to fall, the fallen ones. But Genesis 6 is not the only reference. Centuries later, when Moses sent 12 spies into the land of Canaan, they returned with a terrifying report. Numbers 13, verse 33. "And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." The Nephilim had returned. Or perhaps, they never truly left. To understand the Nephilim, we must understand the beings who created them. The Watchers, the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text that predates Christianity, provides detail that Genesis only hints at. While not considered canonical by most denominations, it was quoted in the New Testament, and it explains what happened before the flood. According to Enoch, a group of 200 angels, led by beings named Azazel and Semyaza, descended to Mount Hermon. They made a pact. They would leave their heavenly station and take human wives. This was not merely disobedience. It was corruption of the created order, a violation of the boundary between the divine and the human. The offspring of this union were the Nephilim, giants of enormous size and strength. But they were more than physically powerful. They were violent. They consumed everything around them. They corrupted humanity. Genesis 6, verse 5 records the result. "The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." The flood was not random judgment. It was a response to what the Watchers had done. The Nephilim had to be removed, because they were never meant to exist. And this brings us to a question that echoes through eschatology, through prophecy, through the words of Christ himself. Will they return? What I am about to explain is the reason many ancient writings were removed from common scripture. Not because they were false, but because they were too specific. In Matthew 24, Jesus spoke of the end times. He gave his disciples a warning, a comparison. Verse 37, "For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. As it was in the days of Noah." This phrase is not poetic, it is prophetic. Jesus is pointing his followers back to Genesis 6, back to the world before the flood, a world where the sons of God took human wives, a world where the Nephilim walked the earth. If the end times will mirror the days of Noah, then the question becomes unavoidable. Will the Nephilim return? The book of Daniel offers another clue. In chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar dreams of a great statue. The prophet Daniel interprets the dream as a timeline of empires, but the final kingdom, the feet of the statue, is described in a strange way. Verse 43, "As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay." They will mix with one another. The Hebrew word for they here is ambiguous. It does not clearly refer to nations or peoples. Some scholars believe this refers to a mixing of seed, bloodlines that should not combine, just as in the days of Noah. Revelation 12 speaks of a war in heaven. Satan and his angels are cast down to the earth. The question ancient theologians wrestled with is this: if fallen angels were bound in chains after the flood, as Jude and 2 Peter suggest, what happens when they are released? What happens when the boundary is crossed again? Scholars and theologians interpret these passages in different ways. Some believe the sons of God in Genesis were the godly line of Seth mixing with the ungodly line of Cain, a purely human explanation. Others hold to the ancient Jewish understanding that the sons of God were indeed angels, that the Nephilim were literal hybrids, and that their return is not metaphorical, but prophesied. The early church fathers largely agreed with the latter view. Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria. They all taught that Genesis 6 described fallen angels. It was only centuries later that alternative interpretations gained prominence. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. The Bible treats the days of Noah as a warning, a pattern, something to watch for. And if Jesus said the end will mirror those days, then we are meant to pay attention. So here is the question worth considering. Do you think the Bible is warning us about history repeating itself? Do you believe the Nephilim are part of prophecy or part of the past? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you found this examination of Scripture meaningful, consider subscribing. This channel exists to explore biblical mysteries with clarity and respect. No sensationalism, no fear, just the text, the context, and the questions that matter. The story of the Nephilim is unsettling because it challenges our understanding of reality. It suggests that the spiritual realm is not distant, that boundaries have been crossed before and may be crossed again. But this is only part of the picture. The book of Daniel contains prophecies that align with the words of Christ, timelines that point to specific events, and in Revelation, John sees the unveiling of what was hidden. In the next examination, we will look at the 70 weeks prophecy, a timeline given to Daniel that many believe points directly to the end. If the Nephilim represent what happened before the flood, Daniel reveals what comes after. Until then, read carefully, question deeply, and remember, the truth is not hidden to keep you in the dark. It is hidden to be found. If you want more hidden biblical mysteries, ancient scrolls, and revelations explained calmly and clearly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.